Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Discussion video. So we got a little bit of vague news, very vague news, and I do want to say right before we get off the bat that there has not been an official announcement stating that Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is coming to an end. There has just been an announcement in a leak that not a leak, but a scan that a lot of people have been sending me. I've probably gotten half a dozen people that have been sending me this scan saying, what do you think this means? Does this confirm that Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is ending? And so many people inquired to me about it, so I figured it just makes sense to make a video on this scan. And the scan says that Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is reaching the climax. And then the rest of the scan goes on to discuss what's going on in Season 3. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, for those of you that have been following it or maybe have not been following it, is going on now for about 2 years and 2 months. If you're aware of 5D's, Zexal, and Arc 5's lifespan, those shows lasted 3 years. They started in the spring of the respective year that they started in, and then they ended 3 springs later. So if we are basing it off of those 3 shows, then Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is probably coming to an end. Again, just basing it off of that, Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS would be coming to an end March 2020 or April 2020. Now, there is no straight-up confirmation that that will be the case. There's, of course, a chance that VRAINS will go longer than 3 years. There's a chance that it might not even make 3 years, that it might be over in, like, December of this year. I mean, we really have no idea. And most likely, there is not going to be a definitive article stating when Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is going to end. Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 was a little different because in June of 2016, that show ended in March of 2017, I personally thought this was announced explicitly in like a scan, kind of like this one, but that was not the case. DMC, the translator of our community, of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, great guy, said to me in a message that the sound director of Arc 5 did an interview on June 10th, 2016, where he stated that Arc 5 is a 3-year-long show. And so reading into that, that's where the whole, oh, well then it's definitely ending spring of 2017 came from. So there was no explicit statement that was made, and most likely there won't be an explicit statement made regarding Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS. But the wording here is very interesting, the fact that they're saying it's approaching its climax, because let's look at the very last piece of Yu-Gi-Oh! Media that ended. It's not the Arc 5 anime, it's the Arc 5 manga. In October of 2018, an article came out that said the Arc 5 manga is reaching the climax. Pretty much the exact same wording that is being worded here in this scan, and guess what? 6 months from that article, 6 months from that announcement, even this article on Anime News Network says that it was not explicitly stated if the 7th volume will be the final volume, but after they put this statement out that it's reaching its climax, the Arc 5 manga ended 6 issues later. It ended in April of 2019. Now, no, I don't believe that VRAINS is going to end in 6 episodes or 6 weeks or 6 months because anime and manga run completely differently, but I think that it is it's hard for me to chalk it up as a coincidence that we are almost nearing the 3-year mark that every other Yu-Gi-Oh! Spin-off, not including GX, has ended on, and they're using the same exact language by saying, oh, it's reaching the climax that the Arc 5 manga used half a year before that story came to an end. So again, it's not explicitly stating that VRAINS is ending. If you're asking my opinion on the matter, I think there's probably a pretty good chance that VRAINS is going to be ending soon, because in literary devices, if we just think about what the climax is the big moment of the show. When you think about the big moment of Zexal, you think the Dawn 1000 duel, you think Shark versus Yuma, Nash versus Yuma at the end. And then what usually happens after the climax is called the falling action. And the falling action, stated by literarydevices.net, occurs right after the main climax, when the main problem of the story resolves. It is one of the elements of the plot of the story, the other elements being exposition, rising action, climax, and resolution. Falling action wraps up the narrative, resolves its loose ends, and leads towards the closure. So climax does not mean end of the show, but usually the climax leads to the end of the show. It leads to the falling action, and then it leads to the resolution, speaking from a literary device perspective and point of view. So if that's being said, and if you believe this article at its word, or if you believe this scan at its word, then the Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS anime is reaching its major finale here, I guess you can say, right? What was the climax of Arc 5? It was probably that Zark duel, even though Arc 5 didn't really wrap. Well, I'm not going to get into that. But the climax of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX was Judai versus Night Shout. It was Judai versus Darkness. Basically, Jaden versus the Devil Incarnate himself. And then we had the falling action, which was the graduation, and the conclusion, which was, of course, Jaden and Yugi dueling, just wrapping up all of its loose ends. So with Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually when the final battle, the main climax of the show happens in that final season, it does not take long for the entirety of the show to just wrap up and come to an end. That probably is going to be the case with Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS. But again, guys, I do want to reiterate that there is no 100% set in stone confirmation that VRAINS will be coming to an end. If you want my opinion on the matter, given the precedent of 5D's Zexal and Arc 5 ending after 3 years from their start point, given the fact that we have the same wording that's being used that was used when Arc 5 was approaching its end, the whole wording being climax, and given the fact that this is around the time 3 years ago that Arc 5 interview came out where the sound director said, yeah, it's a 3-year show, I personally believe that VRAINS is going to end in March 2020 or April 2020. That's my prediction. Might not be true. If that is the case, then Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS at the very least has about 30 episodes left, and at most has about 40 episodes left. I believe that that's where we are right now. I think we're in the final 30 to 40 episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS. That's what I personally believe. I believed that before this scan came out. Honestly, if this scan didn't come out, I still would have believed that VRAINS was going to be a 3-year show. It did start a little later than 5D's Zexal and Arc 5. It started in May as opposed to April, so maybe it will go into late April as opposed to ending in late March of 2020, but we will have to wait and see. Again, do not wait around for a definitive article stating Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is coming to an end at this point, at this period in time, unless there's some sort of interview that happens similar to the Arc 5 sound director one. I was incorrect in saying that they usually give us a heads up because, as DMC said, he doesn't believe they did it for 5Ds or Zexal. It just kind of ends when it ends. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm kind of just rambling at this point, but I just wanted to go over that with you guys, and I wanted to hear from you guys if you think that Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is truly coming to an end in about 30 episodes, which is crazy to think, or if you think VRAINS is going to outlast all of this and it's going to go for another year and a half. I'm excited to hear from all of you. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons Alexa Baker, Glen McGookin, Jorge Carrillo, James Rose, Samuel Stark, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Vincent Van Der Veen, Smith620, Jordan Osceola, RedEye, and FrostReaper, and to my Diamond tier patrons Jesse Wood and Garrett Palmer, and to my Egyptian God tier patrons Syn Cloud, Matthew Kennedy ×2, Chris Swan, and Joss Rivers. Huge thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon, and a huge thank you to everyone who is a YouTube channel member. That is a new feature that my channel just got access to this week, so thank you to everyone who's already signed up for that. It's another way to support me, and it really does mean a lot. Thank you all for watching, because without you guys, obviously, I would not be able to do this. Really excited to talk to you on all things Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, and hey, maybe this kicks off the road to Yu-Gi-Oh! 7 in a way. So I'm really excited to talk to all of you about everything Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime related. Make sure you leave your comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.
夢じゃない